Welcome back to Speed Reads. Today we're diving into one of the shortest but most impactful prophetic books in the Bible, the Book of Obadiah. At only 21 verses, it might seem brief at first glance, but don't let its length fool you. This small book is packed with powerful declarations about justice, pride, betrayal, and God's judgment. Through the prophet Obadiah, God speaks not just to the nation of Edom, but to all people across the ages, offering lessons about the consequences of pride and the ultimate victory of divine justice. The setting of the Book of Obadiah is a time of great upheaval and distress for the people of Israel and its surrounding nations. While the context may seem distant, the themes Obadiah addresses remain strikingly relevant. The book's central focus is Edom, a nation that descended from Esau, the brother of Jacob Israel. While Israel and Edom shared a common ancestry, their relationship was fraught with animosity from the beginning. From the very moment of their birth, Jacob and Esau struggled in the womb, a struggle that would continue for generations. This sibling rivalry, though personal, became political and military, and by the time of Obadiah's prophecy, the bitterness between the two nations had deepened into outright hostility. Edom's pride forms the crux of God's indictment. The first verse of the book sets the tone, declaring that God has sent Obadiah with a message against Edom. This message begins with a description of Edom's arrogance. The people of Edom had grown prideful, secure in their seemingly impenetrable mountain strongholds. The Edomites, who lived in the mountainous regions southeast of Israel, believed that their fortified cities and strong natural defenses, like those found in Petra, made them invincible. They were confident that no one could defeat them, and they boasted in their supposed superiority. But God warns them, saying that their security will be their downfall. The lofty mountains that they trusted in would be brought low. The very pride that had caused them to stand above others would lead to their destruction. God speaks directly to Edom, saying, "The pride of your heart has deceived you." This is a sobering reminder that pride is not just a personal flaw, it distorts our view of reality and leads us into moral ruin. For the Edomites, their sense of superiority over their Israelite cousins turned into a desire to see them destroyed. When Judah, the southern kingdom of Israel, was invaded by foreign powers, Edom did not offer help. In fact, they did the opposite. They stood by, gloating over Judah's misfortune. Worse still, when Jerusalem fell, the Edomites not only watched but actively participated in the destruction. They plundered Jerusalem, taking advantage of the situation, and even blocked the escape routes of those fleeing the city, handing them over to their enemies. They reveled in Judah's fall, forgetting that they shared a common ancestry with Israel. In the eyes of God, this betrayal was unforgivable. Obadiah details this treachery in no uncertain terms. God reminds Edom that their pride will be repaid in kind. The actions they took in their arrogance would return upon them, and their day of reckoning was coming. "As you have done, it shall be done to you," God declares. This principle of retribution is central to the message of Obadiah. It speaks to a foundational biblical truth that God's justice is impartial, and no one escapes the consequences of their actions. Edom had mistreated their own family, and now they would experience the same fate they had inflicted on others. The prophet's words become even more piercing as he describes the complete destruction of Edom. The Edomites believed that their position in the mountains would protect them from any threat, but God reveals that their fortified cities will be brought down. "Your mighty men shall be dismayed," God says, showing that their military might will not save them from his judgment. The very things they relied on, pride, strength, and geography, would become the means of their downfall. God would humble them, scattering them to the wind and leaving their nation in ruins. The divine justice that God speaks of in Obadiah is not just about military defeat. It is a total undoing of their prideful state. Their arrogance would be exposed as foolishness, and the world would see that no one can stand against God's will. However, the judgment against Edom is not just a message of destruction. It is also a call to the other nations of the world. Edom's sin is not merely the act of one nation, but a universal warning against the destructive power of pride and betrayal. The destruction of Edom serves as a reminder to all nations that their actions towards others, especially their treatment of the weak and the oppressed, will have consequences. Obadiah's prophecy speaks across time, pointing to the reality that the arrogant, the unjust, and the betrayers will ultimately face the judgment of God. No nation, no matter how powerful or seemingly secure, can escape the eyes of the righteous judge. But amid the warnings of judgment, Obadiah offers a glimmer of hope, though not for Edom. The final verses of the book turn the focus back to Israel, and more specifically, to the faithful remnant of God's people. The judgment on Edom and the surrounding nations will make way for the restoration of Israel. The exiles of Judah will return to their land, and God promises to restore what was lost. Israel will rise again, and the lands once taken from them will be reclaimed. The kingdom of Israel will be established, not through military conquest or political maneuvering, but by God's hand alone. The last verse of Obadiah contains a powerful statement of ultimate hope. The kingdom shall be the Lord's. This declaration points to the eschatological promise that one day God will reign over all the earth, and his kingdom will be established forever. This is the ultimate triumph of God's justice and his faithfulness to his people. The book of Obadiah thus serves as both a warning and a promise. It warns against pride, betrayal, and the mistreatment of others, reminding us that God sees all and that justice will ultimately prevail. It also offers hope for those who are faithful to God, showing that while the wicked may prosper for a time, their downfall is certain. The righteous may suffer, but God will restore them in the end. The destruction of Edom becomes the prelude to the restoration of Israel, and this theme of redemption resonates throughout Scripture. Obadiah teaches us that true security does not come from our own strength, wealth, or status. True security comes from humble submission to God's will. It reminds us that God's justice is perfect, and no one can escape the consequences of their actions. It calls us to examine our hearts for pride, and it challenges us to live justly and mercifully toward others. Finally, it points us to the ultimate hope of God's kingdom, where righteousness will reign and God's justice will bring about the restoration of all things. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the book of Obadiah. If this powerful prophecy has left you thinking, be sure to subscribe to Speed Reads for more in-depth explorations of every book of the Bible. Up next, the book of Jonah, a fascinating story of rebellion, mercy, and God's unrelenting love for his people.